Hi there, it's Melody's World again. Today, I was thinking about how many things there are that just kind of happen all the time. And I was thinking about Rosanna Dana. Some of you my age and older remember her. She was this character on Saturday Night Live, and she was hysterical. But it's one of those episodes, one of those bits that I always think about when it's like things seem to be going okay, things seem to be clicking along, and then it's always something. And there's always something, and that's what she said. She was always like talking about these silly things. She would start very serious, and it would get off on these like, maybe it's, everything's going great, and then her hair starts itching. It's something. She was awesome. It's always something, isn't it? And today, the something was the AWS Amazon crash, which I don't even understand technically what that is, but I do know that most high-tech companies depend upon it, and it pretty much took out half of the internet all over the world. And it made, I can imagine, a lot of people recognize exactly how technologically dependent we have become. And the cost of that, I can't even imagine how much that must have cost. It's got to be in the billions of dollars to have lost that much productivity, because so much of our productivity is now technical, right? And because of that, I don't think people realize exactly how much we have become dependent on that technology for everything, for our medications, for our doctor's appointments, our the food that we get, the roads that we drive on. I mean, it's all managed with the internet in some way. And because of that, I think we have lost sight of the fact that we have become so dependent on this. It's kind of like the frog in the water. You know, how do you boil a frog? You start out cool and warm it up slowly. And that's what we've been. We've been sort of warmed up, and now it's starting to get a little hotter, because we're starting to see that unless we have some backup systems, redundant systems where we're not all dependent on the same thing, then, I mean, that's the whole reason why we had laws against having that much of a monopoly over things, because people decades and decades and years, hundreds of years ago, recognized that if something got too big, it could have too much influence on everything else, and competition would be lost. But also, we lose functionality. We lose the ability to function in the ways that we have been used to working, and have this one system that everybody depends upon crash across the globe. This is a pretty major thing. And hopefully it'll help people start to wake up a little bit and realize, hey, there are some serious things that we need to look at. We are billions of people on this planet depending on this one tiny, well, not so tiny, but infrastructure that is totally, and I have no idea. Maybe it was a sabotage from someone. I don't know. I know nothing about it, but I do know that it should be waking us up to see exactly how we have to come together and start to come up with solutions for these problems that are caused by the growth of corporate power. Because the people who own those corporations, they just want to get bigger and bigger. They're all about growth, right? Which makes sense. We're all about growth. They want to grow. They want to build up their reserves. They want to become bigger and bigger. They swallow up other companies, and they swallow up other companies, and they swallow up other companies, to the point that we're at a place where the little guy doesn't have much chance in most of our economic circles to become as well off as we might be, because it's all going to this conglomerate that has now taken over the world. And unless we start to wake up and start to go, wait a second, we need to have these redundant systems where we can depend upon each other instead of depending on this huge one thing, then we're extremely vulnerable. We are extremely vulnerable. And that is not a safe place to be, right? Vulnerability is not a safe place to be. We need to have some protections that allow us to feel that we have security. And there is no security when you've got one company that's running so much of the world. And what are we going to do, right? If something happens, somebody puts some malware in it, or whatever it is that happened today, or the sun affects our electrical systems. What do we do then? And how we're also dependent. Are we all going to starve? Because, well, a lot of us may, because we don't know how to cook our own foods. We don't know how to can things. We don't know how to do all that stuff that our ancestors knew how to do. And it's not to say that I think that we need to, all be disconnected from tech, because obviously I like it. But we need to all be aware of how much we're depending upon it and find some ways to have some redundancy. Everybody should have a garden. I don't have a garden. I don't have any property to put a garden on, but there are, even in cities, there are community gardens. We need to have more of those, right? We need to start recognizing that it's not just up to these corporate giants to make sure that we have food, to make sure that we have the medications that we need. We have got to start learning or relearning some of the ways that people survived in the past, because these are delicate systems that are vulnerable to attack. They are vulnerable to failure. And if we're too dependent upon them, then our lives are at risk. We saw that with the COVID, when everything, all the supply chains broke down, and we suddenly found ourselves without many medications that we needed, and the formula for babies, right? There was just all these things that, because they're run by bigger and bigger organizations, we don't have local avenues to get those needs fulfilled. And because Amazon, among other things, has slowly eaten up all the small companies and made it next to impossible for a small company to be competitive. It's like, I remember, gosh, in college, I used to do a lot of macrame, and man, I would do some good, interesting pieces of macrame necklaces and hanging pot things and all wall hangings, all kinds of things. But I couldn't do them as fast as the people who I was competing against, because they had these little people who could just do it all day long and just do it. And there was no way I could compete with that. And it's kind of like that. If you can't compete, you can't play in that field. You've got to find a way to play in a different field. And then we've suddenly become more and more dependent on the bigger organizations to manage it, and it's gotten exponentially greater. So we're at this time where things really have to change. And I didn't attend the No Kings March this year, or this month, just this weekend, because I'm starting to realize that the more that we see that current administration as the problem, the less we are focused on where the real problems are. And the real problems started way back with Citizens United, where corporations began to have all the same rights as individuals. And so then but with way more resources, and they began to influence more and more of our elections and more of our laws and more of our ability to function every day. I mean, when I was growing up, it was considered loan sharking to have any kind of a debt collector charge more than 20%. And now debt collectors can charge whatever they want. Credit cards can charge whatever they want. And there is no loan sharking laws that protect us from that. And I don't think people realize, it's like, why do we have so much credit card debt in this country? Because we can never pay it back. Because the interest rates are so high that it's almost impossible, unless you're pretty wealthy, to pay it back. And of course, we've become accustomed to borrowing money. Now, there's a lot of people that are wising up, fortunately, and getting out of that kind of debt. But it's so tempting at times when prices start to go up It's like, well, I'll just put it on the credit card and pay for it at the end of the month. Well, then what happens next month? And what happens the month after that? And so we find ourselves digging ourselves deeper and deeper into a hole that we cannot get out of. And we can't do this by ourselves. We have to pull together as a community and figure out how to support each other in becoming more sustainable. And this isn't necessarily about, being the liberal, oh, let's all, gather in circles and sing about peace. It's about, okay, you have resources, you have those other resources, I have different resources. Let's get together and see if we can't help each other to make it all work for everybody. That's how communities work. And we've gotten so far away from having any kind of communities. That everyone I talk to, the most difficult thing that they have, two things. One is living their life authentically, because they were raised to believe that they had to be a certain way to please the people around them. And the second thing being, we don't have community. We don't have the kind of support and connection, and that allows a community, allows a country, allows a state, a city, a neighborhood to thrive. We have to start relying on each other. And it's so hard because we have Amazon. And I know even for me, it's so hard because I can order something, I'll be here in a day or two, and I won't have to pay shipping on it. And I don't have to, put gas in my car to go drive someplace and several places to find it. It's all right there. But we need to find a way around that because this is keeping us trapped. It's keeping us trapped and dependent and vulnerable. And that's scary to me. And if we don't do something now to start waking up, and it's not the MAGA person that's to blame, it's not the libtards that are to blame, it is all of us have been manipulated to attack each other so that we don't look at where the real problem is and we don't pull together and help each other. And that is the real danger here. Because if we allow that to work, well, I should say continue to work, then nothing's going to change. And it's protesting this administration, which of course I've made no secret about, I'm not a fan of, but I wasn't a fan of the things that I knew were happening under the guise of democracy before. But now we have to start realizing it is a government for the people. It is supposed to be by the people, and it's not. It's being by corporations. And until we can start to recognize that that's the case, then we will not have the kind of freedom and the kind of opportunity that as a nation we have benefited from so much because we've been this mixing pot where we have shared each other's values and we've shared, we've worked together. Even if we didn't agree, we still worked together in a community to build each other up and to build a support network where we could all function in unity, even if we didn't disagree, even if we did disagree. Now, because of the manipulation of the corporate media, we're in such a place that we've lost sight of that. And that's the real danger. So we have to pull ourselves back and realize, yeah, it's always something. And unless we can start to rely on each other, there's not going to be much chance that we'll survive this. I hate to say it that negatively, but we can pull together. We can be a force for unity if we stop seeing the other side as the bad guys and start recognizing that we have to take responsibility for the condition of the world that we live in and start building up these backup systems, these redundant systems, so that we don't crash and burn. And we're going to crash and burn if we don't. And that's going to require, without a doubt, all of us starting to put down our weapons and looking at each other and going, wait a second, we're all in this same thing together here. There no my neighbor who's wagging the Confederate sign off the back of his truck, even though I totally disagree with him. we're not enemies, and that we all have the same needs. We need to eat, we need to have security, we need to have a place to live, we all have those same needs, and we all want to get ahead. We all want to succeed in our lives, and we're not going to if we're dependent on systems that are only about their own survival. They don't care whether we make it or not, which is kind of stupid, because without the masses, they don't function, right? That we have to be in a place to be able to have some purchase power in order for them to function. So it's kind of self-sabotaging, and we see it happen all the time. But we are aware of more history, we are aware of more cultures, have more education and more knowledge, more of a database of information to show us what can work and what doesn't. We just have to be willing to do the thing that feels that it's against the way that things are going at the moment. And at the moment, it's all rolling toward this oligarchy that's run by corporations, or whatever, however you say that word. And we are responsible for that. They are not responsible for that. There's far more of us. And it's not about, tearing things down. It's about pulling away our support of places where we are losing our freedoms and we're losing our ability to stay safe and secure. And that is my I guess, testimony for today. I just get really concerned when I see things like this happening, and we have to start taking ownership, because otherwise we're victims. I'm Melody Brooke. You can find out more about me at melodybrooke.com and on YouTube. I have just started my Melody's World channel, which I'll start putting more of these videos up there. Anyway, thanks for whoever managed to listen today. And if you think there's anybody that could benefit from it, please pass it on to them, share it with them. I'll be here next week. I try to be here every week, 5 o'clock-ish, as close as I can make it. And I'll see you next week.